So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 10 signs that let you know you're having a spiritual awakening. Hi there, beautiful souls. I'm Michèle Duquet. Welcome to my channel, Soulful and Unplugged, a channel about the spiritual awakening journey, where I show you how to live a more joyful life by helping you navigate your human journey through your soul's perspective. This is part 3 of a series I called Awakening Series, and I've created a playlist where you'll find all of the other parts, part 1 and 2, as well as any future series, and a playlist that I'll list right here, as well as in the descriptions. I like my videos to be very user-friendly. That's why I timestamp everything in the descriptions below. So if there's something that immediately you want to know, go in the descriptions, click on the timestamp, and go right to it. Now, if that sounds interesting to you, I would love to have you join our beautiful community that we have here by subscribing and ring the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 10 signs that let you know you're having a spiritual awakening. In the title, I called it 10 surprising signs because these are signs that I don't see talked about or hear talked about all that much. And I think it's going to be very helpful to talk about them today. This video is going to be in 2 parts. The first part will be the 10 listed as I describe them. And then the second part will be a way to help you deal with this as you go through it in your life. So the first sign may sound a little weird. It's that you feel different than yourself. You feel different than the old familiar self, and you behave differently too. What that may feel like is up to a certain point in your life, you've had things in your life that you did without really thinking about it. It just was just you. You were just doing your thing. And then it starts to feel like you want to go and do those things, but you can't. Somehow something is just different. And this can be alarming because it feels unfamiliar and it feels a little jarring. You think something may be wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're changing. That's what's happening. But it'll feel inside yourself like really you feel different than yourself. But some of the perks of that is that you can spontaneously start behaving in a way that's different for the better. And it's just spontaneous from one moment to the next. That's a definite sign. The number 2 sign, it may take you by surprise. Your excitement for material goodies is lessened. You lose your mojo. You lose your need for retail therapy. The attachment to material things is loosened. And things that used to excite you, like, you know, your girlfriend's calling you up saying, hey, let's go shopping. You're like, no, not into it. It's a little strange, but it's because you are understanding at a deeper level how that is an outside source of an inner joy. What you're really seeking is that inner joy, and you start getting a sense that you're not going to get it from any external material things. And that means that your priorities are changing from a material perspective to a spiritual perspective. Number 3, your heart is opening up. You're becoming more compassionate, but what happens is you're able to embrace opposing views. In December, I talked about the messages I got that we are going into oneness. And that is part of the spiritual awakening journey. As your heart opens up, it's about understanding that within you are opposing realities, light and dark, and that as you open your heart during your spiritual awakening, you become better able to embrace opposites, and you start to be more compassionate towards those who are still in that dualistic mindset of us against them, right, wrong, dark, light. Number 4, your consciousness is widening. Your consciousness is including your intuitive thoughts, your intuitive feeling, and even some sense of the unseen world and the energetic world. And what that does is it gives you a stronger sense of freedom in your thoughts. You feel freer in your own thoughts. And other people's thoughts and belief have less of an influence on you. You're stronger in your center. You develop your own spiritual compass that guides you. And that doesn't mean that because you're no longer influenced by other people's beliefs, or not as much influenced by other people's beliefs, that doesn't mean that you don't respect them at all. You have, in fact, a greater respect for other people's beliefs because you have a stronger respect for your own. You understand that everybody has their own journey and their own path, but you develop a sense of self-respect in your own journey and your own path that you're going through. Number 5, you notice that the old egoic ways or competitive ways just don't work anymore. You'll see people try to rope you in back into that competitive mode and back into that ego way of doing things, and it just doesn't work anymore. You couldn't care less. So the reason that your ego is not triggered and you're no longer in alignment with that competitiveness is because you are aligning with an inner spiritual compass. Your values are changing, and it is affecting your ego in a way that your ego starts to be a little quieter and not as triggering as before. It is a beautiful change and a beautiful transformation. But it can also be a little jarring because you have to figure out, well, where you fit in the world now. But you also really enjoy not having your ego triggered. There's a peace that comes with that. Number 6, you start developing emotional maturity and balance. Now, what does that mean anyway? It means that you're more interested in observing your emotions than being driven by your emotions. You start having an understanding that your emotions are showing up for you to see them, and you have the opportunity to heal them in the moment. You become more interested in healing the inner wounds rather than suppressing them, because you know that suppressing them does no good. What you resist persists, and that goes for emotions. Number 7, you start standing up for yourself in a loving but firm way. Wow, when this starts to happen, everything changes. Because what's happening is you are developing self-love. You are developing greater compassion for yourself. You see very clearly when you're being mistreated. You know that it's no longer part of something that you want in your life. You also understand that the other person is doing the best they can, and if they are mistreating you, it's part of their own programming, but that you no longer wish to be in that dance with them, and you know that you have your own powerful stance that you can take and no longer put up with being mistreated. And while this can be hard, you do find yourself ending some friendships and no longer wishing to be in relationship with certain people. This is difficult, but it's extremely healthy. Number 8, you begin to embrace your own humanness. You start seeing yourself as a beautifully flawed human being where all of your experiences are to be cherished. And you begin to see your human experiences through the prism of a wider consciousness, one that sees through the soul's view or an energetic perspective. Number 9, you begin to develop compassion for all sentient beings, all animals, all nature. Number 10, you stop seeking fulfillment outside yourself. You start looking within for a true connection to a higher power. You start actually wanting to take responsibility for yourself. You develop a kind of self-honesty that you didn't have before, because you're able to better recognize your programming and your true light and your true beautiful self. And between the two, you can better decipher what is your responsibility and what is not. And you're better able to be honest with yourself. And in that discovery of an inner connection to source or spirit or a higher power, you develop a grounded view of everything that used to throw you off and throw you off balance, because you're aware of something that you weren't aware of before. You have much more subtle sensitivity to everything. Now, this can be difficult. I'm going to talk about that in part 2. It is tricky to walk around more sensitive, but it's doable. I promise, it's doable. So as you can imagine, it's not easy to go through this. I want you to know that you're not alone. There are millions and millions of people all over the world going through this. And I hope you take comfort in knowing that your journey is deeply appreciated. I do receive messages from the energetic realms, and every day they express their gratitude for all that we are going through and for all that we are doing for the ascension and the spiritual awakening that is happening. And what I want to offer you in this second part is kind of a guidance as to how to deal with this in real life. Because we can, go to a retreat and have these really phenomenal experiences and feel enveloped in love and support and real kindness, where we can, be vulnerable and go through this journey in a safe environment. But there always comes a day where we have to come back to our lives and to our friends and families, and it's difficult because we come back more open, more vulnerable, more sensitive, and feeling more exposed. We're not more exposed, but we feel that way. So one of the things that is really important is meditation in the morning. I'm guilty of being really lazy of this, but protecting myself with white light, white golden light, before I walk out of my house. Sometimes I forget. And sometimes I get lazy and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. But actually, all it takes is thought. All it takes is a moment where I allow the golden white light to enter my crown, go into my body, and fill my heart with love and beauty and kindness and light, and spread that into an auric field around me. And then I surround that with a beautiful indigo blue, violet mist. And I tell myself, only love can come in through this protective shield, and only love can leave. And that really sets up my day in a beautiful way. It'll surprise you how simple the things that are what can derail you a little bit. Something simple for me, like going downtown, driving downtown, or even going to a shopping mall. I know, right? It's silly. But driving downtown with all of the traffic and stimuli, an overabundance of stimuli, from the sounds to the images to people's aggression on the sidewalk, it's overwhelming. Because why? You start picking up on energies. You start being sensitive to things you weren't aware of before. And it feels like an invasion, because it takes time to go from who you used to be to who you are becoming. The first step of the spiritual awakening sign that you don't feel like yourself anymore, that's what I'm talking about. You feel more vulnerable because you don't have the same resources that were so familiar. You don't have the same backup defense mechanism. If you protect yourself before you go out that way and you meditate in the morning, it can really help. And one of the dangers while we're going through this spiritual awakening, especially at the beginning, is isolation. Isolation can be very destructive rather than constructive and healing. There's a difference between spending solitary time and really enjoying your time to reconnect with yourself, and isolation. In isolation, there's fear involved. In solitary time, in alone time, there's love. Love for myself, love for oneself, and you are becoming more loving. And that's quite difficult to be confronted day in, day out by a world that is not ready to be loving. As, for example, you're evolving beyond your ego triggers, you are going to be triggered. Your ego is going to be triggered. Your emotions are going to be triggered. You're going to want to judge yourself. And I still catch myself judging myself. I haven't gotten over that self-critic. But what I do is I go easy on myself. I give myself permission to be human. And that's the beautiful part about the spiritual awakening, is that more and more we give ourselves the permission to be flawed human beings, and less we try to be perfect people. And it does feel counterintuitive. You would think that as you become more and more spiritually awakened, that you would, be a less flawed human being. But in actuality, as you become more honest with yourself, you're more honest about your flaws. And you're better able to take responsibility for your life as it is. And you're better able to accept everything in your life. And that is what makes you more loving. More loving towards yourself and more loving towards others. In my human body, in my human state, as I live this life, I still need friends. I need relationships. I need others. I need to be human, because that's why I came here. That's why we are here, to be human. However, the beauty is that we become human, but with our soul's perspective, with a wider consciousness, and we are able to embrace others. And as we become more and more and more awakened, we're able to see that we are all fundamentally one. So I encourage you to find a group of people that you feel comfortable with, that you can be vulnerable with, and that you can comfortably go through your spiritual awakening without isolating, because that is a big danger. So in the weeks and months to come, as I continue making these videos, I will really take to heart your questions and the guidance that you need, and I will do my very best to help you along your journey. So I highly recommend you click on this playlist and watch the other parts of this awakening series if you are seeking more information and seeking a groundedness in what you're going through. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.